Hi, everyone. Well, this week, the topic that we discuss in the myths that inhabit us course is Prometheus. And it is true that Prometheus is one of the most fascinating figures in mythology. And also for our course, we have like two very relevant figures. The one is Prometheus, and the other one is Hercules. Both create like a bridge in our course. One is like the column that that talk about the ancient myth, the Primigenian times, and the idea of the myth in the very first civilizations. And the other one that is Hercules is the one that will talk about the hero, the superheroines, and the structure of the hero and the heroine in the travel that will explain Campbell in his book, The Hero of Thousand Faces. Also, Hercules is going to be like the model for our systemic thinking competences. So the idea is that both are very relevant for our course, and of course, we need to discuss a little bit about Prometheus and Hercules. So let me share screen so that yeah, here it is. Let's know a little bit more about the myth of Hercules.
Before the creation of humanity, the Greek gods won a great battle against a race of giants called the Titans. Most Titans were destroyed or driven to the eternal hell of Tartarus. But the Titan Prometheus, whose name means foresight, persuaded.
We have here something important. In this Titanomachias, we have two teams, like the gods and the titans, and even Prometheus is a titan. He fought side to side to the gods. So this aspect is relevant because he will show also with this act that he's free, that he has the free will of decide what is the better for him and for his ideals.
His brother Epimetheus to fight with him.
Also, the name. Remember that the name is also a destiny, of course, for the Greeks and maybe also for our times. But for the Greeks is very relevant. The name Prometheus, the foresight, the one that can see to the future, to the front, the one that can see what is coming on, and his brother Epimetheus, the one that see behind the one that see the past and that stuff. So in this case, also we can make a question about if we have two advices, one from Prometheus and one from Epimetheus, what advice will be better? The one that see the future, the one that see the past? There is not an easy answer because the answer will have consequences, and also these consequences can be like in favor or against the main character of a story. So it is also important how in the ancient myths, the creation and the tales have these two protagonists. And maybe at the beginning, they can be like, we can say that they are opposite forces. But at the end, we can see how they are complementary forces. So this is also relevant for the cosmogonic myths, for the ancient myths, and also for this myth here about Prometheus.
On the side of the gods. As thanks, Zeus entrusted the brothers with the task of creating all living things. Epimetheus was to distribute the gifts of the gods among the creatures. To some he gave flight, to others the ability to move through water or race through grass. He gave the beasts glittering scales, soft fur, and sharp claws. Meanwhile, Prometheus shaped the first.
We can say, well, the future is better, so Prometheus is better than Epimetheus. But we can see here that Epimetheus is the one that give life to animals, to nature, for example, and of course Prometheus to humanity.
Humans out of mud. He formed them in the image of the gods, but Zeus decreed they were to remain mortal and worship the inhabitants of Mount Olympus from below. Zeus deemed humans subservient creatures, vulnerable to the elements and dependent on the gods for protection. However, Prometheus envisioned his crude.
Also, we will see that there is a structure that is similar in very, very relevant myths, and it's like a structure of cosmogonic myths. When the gods create humanity, the idea is that humanity has to obey and serve the gods. That's a very relevant purpose for the gods. Of course, maybe this can be illogical because why the gods need humanity? Why they need this obedience and these people that say, "Oh, you are greater, you are the best, you are the greatest, you are the god of this thing." So also we can see with this element that the gods are very anthropomorphic. That means that they have many elements or characteristics of humans. So like this aspect that they need this element of obedience and so that. Well, let's continue.
Creations with a greater purpose. So when Zeus asked him to decide how sacrifices would be made, the wily Prometheus planned a trick that would give humans some advantage. He killed a bull and divided it into two parts to present to Zeus. On one side, he concealed the succulent flesh and skin under the unappealing belly of the animal. On the other, he hid the bones under a thick layer of fat.
Well, we can see that Prometheus is gonna cheat Zeus because he disagree what is going on about the relation between humanity and the gods. Also, this is a characteristic, sorry, of the trickster. The trickster is this character that can be like they don't always follow the rules and make some tricks like this to hide the good part in a bad part, and the bad part like it seems like the better part. So this aspect of the trickster will be very relevant for Hercules and for Hercules for Prometheus, and also we can find this characteristic of cheating in other cosmogonic myths, and also this is gonna be like a very relevant characteristic about the characters that back up humanity and don't back up gods.
When Zeus chose the seemingly best portion for himself, he was outraged at Prometheus's deception. Fuming, Zeus forbade the use of fire on Earth, whether to cook meat or for any other purpose. But Prometheus refused to see his creations denied this resource. And so he scaled Mount Olympus to steal fire from the workshop of Hephaestus and Athena. He hid the flames in a hollow fennel stalk and brought it safely down to the people. This gave them the power to harness.
Prometheus stole the fire. This is very relevant because it talks about the origin of the fire. The fire is an element from the gods, and these elements, the gods uses the gods use this element. So why this is important? Because when the fire is in the hands of humanity, humanity has a very relevant element of the gods, and they have this fire because Prometheus. So we say that Prometheus is a benefactor. Prometheus give humanity civilization because Prometheus give humanity the fire. This is very relevant. That humanity doesn't have fire. They have well, there is cold in Earth. They don't can eat meat because well they can't cook meat, and the life also at the night is at the night is horrible because there are many sounds that they doesn't understand. But when the fire arrives, when Prometheus give the fire, this everything change because they can cook meat, they can light the night, they can warm the habitat. So the fire is an element that, in this case, well, is very relevant for humanity, is essential for a human life.
Harness nature for their own benefit and ultimately dominate the natural order. With fire, humans could care for themselves with food and warmth, but they could also forge weapons and wage war. Prometheus's flames acted as a catalyst for the rapid progression of civilization. When Zeus looked down at this scene, he realized what had happened. Prometheus had once again wounded his pride and subverted his authority.
When we say that the fire also can forge a weapon, it is important to make this question that if the fire is good or bad. And maybe what we can find is that fire is not good or bad. It is the use that we made of it, the one that it's gonna be good or bad. That can be for better or worse. And in these cases, it is also relevant to think about fire not only like the element for the forge for making weapons, but also for scientific purposes. When we think about how science is created, we can say that one element that provokes science is also the fire of knowledge, the fire of to do things, and also this knowledge, this skill, this ability to make some new element, to innovate and create some element. We must to think if this is gonna be good or bad, because we can create weapons, but also we can create medicine. So the idea is that the fire don't only give humanity the elements of warmth or light, but also the knowledge, and the knowledge will be also very relevant for this tale, for this myth, but also for our own reflection about Prometheus and how Prometheus inhabit in our quotidianity.
Furious, Zeus imposed a brutal punishment. Prometheus was to be chained to a cliff for eternity. Each day, he would be visited by a vulture who would tear out his liver, and each night his liver would grow back to be attacked again in the morning.
That's why the human liver can heal itself because this aspect of Prometheus.
Although Prometheus remained in perpetual agony, he never expressed regret at his act of rebellion.
He stole the fire and he has punishment. Prometheus can be liberated when Hercules arrives because Hercules will need his help to fulfill one of the 12 labors that he has to do. So also with this, we can see um, how Hercules and Prometheus are related also in the mythological times.
His resilience in the face of oppression made him a beloved figure in mythology. He was also celebrated for his mischievous and inquisitive spirit and for the knowledge, progress, and power he brought to human hands. He's also a recurring figure in art and literature. In Percy Bysshe Shelley's lyrical drama Prometheus Unbound, the author imagines Prometheus as a romantic hero who escapes and continues to spread empathy and knowledge. Of his protagonist, Shelley wrote, "Prometheus is the type of the highest perfection of moral and intellectual nature, impelled by the purest and the truest motives to the best and noblest ends." His wife Mary envisaged Prometheus as a more cautionary figure and subtitled her novel Frankenstein, "The Modern Prometheus." This suggests the damage of corrupt
see how Prometheus is relevant for us today. And the stories about Frankenstein are recreated in movies, in books, in comics, in many, many aspects, in many, many media. So the idea here is what we do with science, what we do with knowledge, and this aspect that reflects Mary Shelley also is a reflection for today. How can interact with each other in a good way, and how the AI, for example, can affect that interaction, how social media also affects our relations, how the electronic stuff and gadgets also can affect our relations, our creations, how is uh, what we do with these elements that we have today. We use it for good, we use it for bad. What is our reflection about technology when we approach these aspects? When, of course, it is inevitable to have these interactions with gadgets, with technology, with science, but the idea here is not ban any of these elements. The idea here is that we can how can we create a good relations, and how can we create good aspects, good elements, or technology for good, and of course for the good of humanity, not only for the good of a few people that in many cases are the richest people on earth, like the ones that dominate the AI right now. So it is important to make these reflections, make the reflection in this aspect of with the pretext of Prometheus, and also, of course, the fire, the knowledge.
The natural order and remains relevant to the ethical questions surrounding science and technology today. As hero, rebel, or trickster, Prometheus remains a symbol of our capacity to capture the powers of nature. And ultimately, he reminds us of the potential of individual acts to ignite the world. TED-Ed is a nonprofit. If you value our...
Well, Prometheus is so relevant as an archetype that we can say that we have many Prometheus around the world. One Prometheus, for example, for our culture, for our Mexican culture, is the Tlacuache. Let's know a little bit more about this story.
Before fire, long ago, when the world was still young and full of shadows, the sky gods held fire high in the heavens, locked inside their mountain fortress. The gods kept fire for themselves, saying mortals were too wild to be trusted with it. Down below, the people shivered in the cold.
Remember, one relevant aspect about the systemic thinking is that we can identify what is the structure of the myths, and what are like the stages, the steps, and the development of the myths, so that we can reflect our own story on these steps, on these different stages about an story. So, in this case, we can identify that the beginning it is very similar. The gods have the fire, and humanity have cold. So the fire is for some few characters in the story, and it is banned for the others. And also, we will need a character that can bring that fire from in this case, from the gods to the humanity.
No food, and lived by the dim glow of stars and moon. Crops wilted, children cried through cold nights. Jaguars stalked the villages in darkness. All creatures feared the gods, except for Tlacuache, the opossum. Tlacuache was small. His tail was beautiful. He scurried, scavenged.
look the tail of the tlacuache, the possum, because it's gonna be very, very important for the story.
And told jokes that made no one laugh. But he had fire in his heart, not the burning kind, but the fire of defiance. He was clever, and where brute strength failed, wit could win. One day, he told the people, "You don't need the gods' permission. You just need someone with enough tail to steal their fire." They laughed until he vanished into the hills. Tlacuache climbed for 3 days and nights through freezing winds and eagle-infested cliffs until he reached the summit of the sky god's fortress. The gods were sleeping. The fire was kept in a great stone pit, burning with colors the world had never seen: blue, gold, red, white. Tlacuache crept in, plunged his long...
Well, it is also important to say that the tlacuache, it is not the fierce animal that tried to stall the fire. Also, the jaguar tried to stall the fire, but he failed. And at the beginning of times, the jaguar was an animal of only one color. The spots that have the jaguar are because the fire burns the jaguar. So also that's part of the origin of the spots in the jaguar, and it's part of a cosmogonic myth that is related to Mayan civilization.
Tail into the flames and held back a scream. His tail caught fire, not just warmth, the essence of flame itself. He ran, thunder rolled, lightning cracked. The gods woke in fury and hurled down firebolts, chasing the thief across the sky. Tlacuache tumbled down the mountain, his tail burning and blackened, but he kept running through rivers, trees, thorny brush, setting the earth alight as he passed. He reached the village, where people gathered in awe. "Here," he panted, "warm your hands, cook your food, light your homes." Then he collapsed. From that day forward, humans had fire. And Tlacuache? He limped back into the forest, his once beautiful tail now black, hairless, and curled, a mark of his bravery and sacrifice.
As you can see, well, the tail of the tlacuache is like it is because he stole the fire with his tail, with the tail. Well,
Some say he never stopped grinning. Others say he still plays tricks, not always helpful ones. But deep down, he's the reason we can sit by the fire and tell stories.
also, this is a very important tale because talk about how very small animal that maybe it is unusual, or we can say, well, maybe he has not the enough strength to this journey. Well, he nailed it, right? It nailed it. The Tlacuache achieved the goal and stole the fire. Well, for me, it is also important that we can identify that there are like two ways. Well, many ways maybe, but I want to propose two ways in this case, so that we can continue the conversation. One is about, well, the fire. It is important, as I say, it is part of the knowledge, part of technology, but also in our human story, there are some figures that are hidden figures, even if they have the fire. For example, like in the movie Hidden Figures, we can see how Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson have the fire, but they don't have the our knowledge about the job that they did. So in this case, also, for example, Heidi Lamar, the scientific and artist that give us the Wi-Fi, for example, it is not recognized with this invention. Also, Rosalind Franklin, the scientist that discovered I think that is 51, the number of the photography, in which she discovered the double helix of the DNA. But once again, the novel didn't give her the prize, and well, because humanity, in that case, scientific group, uh, doesn't recognize this element. Why this passes? Well, this happen in many science, that there are hidden figures. In many cases, there are women that humanity doesn't recognize or give this knowledge about the inventions, creations, and discoveries that they did. That's part of the conversation. What are the hidden figures in your own major, in your own specialty? It will be good that you find two or three hidden figures that give something relevant, because when we discover also the story, the human story about these characters, we can also identify that they challenge many problems that they can they did it. They can solve the problems that they had at the time. And when we have these stories at hand, we also can discover another elements and other figures that we didn't know, and they can be an inspiration for us, for our own story, and for the goals that we want to follow. This is one way in which we can follow the conversation. The other way that I invite you to do is to think about who gave you the fire, who are the people that was with you, that was around you, that gave you the fire. Maybe a person that gave you the fire is one person that trusts on you, that say, well, I trust on you. I think that you can do it, you can achieve your goals. Dream big, because when you dream big, you can achieve your goals. And maybe is I don't know, a grandparent, grandmother, father, mother, also maybe a coach, because maybe you do sport, you do basketball, football, baseball, and maybe there is a coach that talks on you, and maybe you say, well, maybe I don't know if I can do this for a competition, for example, and someone say you these words that gave you the fire. So this is another way in which we can follow the conversation. Who gave you the fire, and who is this person, why it's important to you. And with this, we can also discover that Prometheus is not so far of our time. And also, Prometheus is not so far about our own stories, because in which way or another, in a character or another, Prometheus give us the fire also in our days. Well, thank you. This is it for this session about Prometheus. See you next time.